Okay, standing in the portal, facing the unknown. Was that a stimulating title for you? We're in a really interesting moment. Maybe you've noticed. Yeah, I mean, there was probably most of you know, or at least have heard, that there's these major alignments going on this weekend in the cosmos. And even if you don't take stock in astrology, you can feel that things are rapidly accelerating, and if we don't make certain kinds of awakenings now, things might really spiral in directions that we don't necessarily want it to go, right? And so being able to really take responsibility for standing in the portal, and I'm going to talk a lot tonight about what I mean by the portal. So, because it's not, it's you. You're the portal. You are the portal. So it's up to you to assume the position that allows you to stand in it. So I'm going to talk a lot about that. So this was a perfect illustration. I couldn't believe it when I saw the banner, the Marin IONS banner, and I saw this fellow, on the edge of the precipice, and the portal, there's sweeping out to the universe, with galaxies and all this kinds of exploration to be done. And we're sitting there on a little bitty rock. It's quite the view. So that doesn't, let the impressions come as you look at these images. I've written on here that this precipice may not be as stable as it looks, and we need to learn how to keep balance in the shifting landscape, and it seems to be shifting a lot right now, and have good reference points for being able to face the unknown. That's clearly a big unknown through that portal. And how do we find our shipworthy legs in order to be able to maneuver in a way that we're not going to get lost or drown? So I do run the Bay Area Crop Circle Study Group. And it's a magnet. It's a magnet. That subject matter is a magnet for being able to jump off and talk about all kinds of things. So, it can get into physics, it can get into mathematics, it can get into spirituality, it can get into ETs, it can get into near death. I mean, this is a great kind of jumping off point. So, or doorway to go through. So I'm going to be using crop circle imagery quite a lot in this talk. And why? They definitely imply that, they are from an unknown source. Even the ones that are man-made, and there definitely are ones that are man-made, they're mostly, almost entirely, not actually claimed as being man-made. Because it's illegal. It's vandalism on someone's property to go and make a crop circle, right? So they don't usually say, oh, yes, I'm the artist there, unless they were paid for some reason. And so they're from an unknown source, and there's immense intelligence that is available to be gleaned out of looking at these things. And it's something that I've been studying a lot for a long time. And these, I have my photos in my computer. I have several thousand photos of crop circles, and my theory on the crop circles, I really don't like trying to say who's doing them because it's an unknown, and I like being in the face of the unknown. In fact, being able to cultivate that, I think, is really crucial for us right now. My opinion is that everything, the universe is a whole. We know everything is one. The universe is doing crop circles, and they're doing them on our planet, the universe. We're not separate from that. You and me, all of us, we are part of the crop circle phenomenon, whether we know about them or not. It's all the whole holo consciousness field, the noosphere, Institute of Noetic Sciences, right? The whole consciousness field of the planet has something to do with this crop circle thing happening. And that might be actually what we consider the consciousness field of the planet could be way bigger than we usually think of it, right? I mean, we get very myopic thinking as humans in my lifetime, you know? I'm a human in my lifetime, and I don't usually look beyond very much. I mean, you know, when I come to things like this, or when I meditate, or you know, certain ceremonial things can definitely open you up. But what percentage of your life is that? It's you know, it's contrasted with a lot of much more mundane experience. So I'm going to use crop circles, and not for their history, but for their artistry and for their message. And you can read them any way you want. This is just how I'm using them tonight. I'm not saying what I say is the definitive word on anything. Not anything that I'm saying is a definitive word. It's more like it's more like an art piece. And it can change and morph. Okay. But my particular education and personal work, I tend to see life, I'm going to try and expose to you how my mind works, okay? Because I tend to see life through this kind of geometric framework. It's like I'm seeing the structure of the universe and how we're navigating through it. And that actually comes into how I see connection with people, what our relationships are like, which is pretty amazing. I mean, I enjoy that part of it a lot. So I'm looking at life through this framework of this kind of dynamic geometry, and that conforms to fundamental laws of physics. And these same dynamics describe our consciousness and how it functions, and understanding how these dynamics work help us find balance in our relationships, both to ourselves, which is first relationship, is your relationship with yourself, and to every other relationship we have, which are extensions of yourself, right? Okay, so here we have a portal, a portal. In this talk, I'm going to talk about when I'm talking about what I mean by a portal, and I'm going to use a little bit of unified physics, not a lot, and a lot of self-knowledge and wisdom gleaned from really big spiritual traditions. So, and this is meant to be activating the portals in yourselves, may it be. So note that this, you know, when I start to look at these crop circles and how they speak to me, this door, first of all, is it a door? Yeah, well, it looks like a door to me. It's a trapezoid, but it's not an even trapezoid. The angles are off, it's skewed a little bit. And so this is not, wherever this door is going through, it's in a perspective that's not the flat plane of the surface of the image, right? You go in through, I mean, this is how I read these things. It's like, whoa, this is very, it's got a lot of information there. And I haven't done the math. I don't know anyone who's done this analysis, but I had this thought just recently that the area of the door actually may be equal to the area of the circle that is not door, which would be very interesting if that were true. But that would be the type of knowledge that would be embedded in a crop circle, that when that stuff gets revealed, I just go, oh, very cool. So, but the one thing we do notice about this door is that it's got a huge doorknob, right? It's a big old honking doorknob. And that looks like it would be a very heavy door to open. And but there are some hints, there's some clues here, which is that doorknob actually is in the exact center of the whole figure. That's a clue. Are you guys familiar with crop circles? Yeah, have you seen this one? This is, I'm going to be showing a bunch of them that you may not have ever seen. I don't know. That is not camera distortion. That's how it was drawn in the field. So again, reality is not what we usually think it is. And angles of perception, our angles of perception is distorted, and reality is much more malleable than we think. Even down to the crystalline grid, it's much more malleable than we think. Atoms are, they're just spins in space. You know, they're just little charges in space that are spinning in particular kinds of direction that yield a certain kind of texture of space. This is all space. We know that, right? You know, if you take all you're not really, there's not much of you here. It's mostly space, you know, and but it's spinning at such an amazingly complex and intelligent coherence that it gives the impression not only of this thing functioning over time, but you can see it, I can see it, you know, it sure looks like it's here, right? But it's all a coordinated spin in space, okay? So space is structured and oscillating, and it's spinning at every level of scale. And I want to add that space is actually relating. There's we tend to think of it as very dry, and space. We materialize it. You know, we think of it like matter, and but actually it's everywhere that there's coherent spin is a seat for consciousness. So these are toruses. Do you know this term, a torus? It's gotten very popular. It's the donut shape that is where information is coming in. You have torus fields around you, and every biological entity, every atom is a torus field. Anyway, it's this donut shape that has information coming in and to a singularity in the center. So information is coming in, it coalesces into the singularity point, which is you. You are in the center of your own set of torus fields, and then the information gets rotated back out again. So it's this spinning, rotating geometry that's taking in information and then going out with information, outformation, right? So, and they're nested and fractal. All of reality is created of these spinning fields. That's what you get when you spin, is that you get this shape. It's bringing in the information and cohering and then going back out again. So they call this at the bottom level scale that we can actually measure in some fashion. It's the tiniest bit of oscillation in space of light. It's called the Planck unit, named after Mr. Planck. And I love that. It's like little planks. You know, again, we materialize space. It's very funny. But all of space, if you want to measure from that scale, you would call it the Planck field. And they're really itty bitty, teeny weeny weeny. And so how I understand it is that these coherent patterns of oscillation and spin they create harmonies of dynamic, finding ways to dance it beautifully. They're looking for beauty, actually, you know, and beauty is harmony. Beauty is pretty simple, you know, there's something, it's got phi ratios in it. It's, you know, these laws that live in the universe, they're part of making this up, so. So these coherent patterns relate to each other harmonically, creating deeper and vaster complexity. It is a single vast whole movement of coherent spin going on, the holo movement, and every coherent point is related and being related to every other point. You know, it's all one. We talk about it all being one, it's true. It's all one, but it's not homogeneous. And we can make the mistake of kind of flattening it by saying it's all one. And if we expect to maneuver in the larger universe, in big unknowns, we got to be ready for it to not look like what you think it's supposed to look like. You know, and how do we keep our hearts open in the face of that? How do we keep our stability in the face of that? Oh, spin patterns. These spin patterns, they're not stuck. You know, that's another thing where we tend to materialize things and concretize in our consciousness. And we think, now I know what that is. We know a thin veneer. We know very little of the reality. You know, they say we are only using 5% of our brains, right? That's a lot of brain in there that's probably getting information that I know nothing about, you know, it's like, at least consciously, you know, and interestingly, I mean, it's so amazing to me, just shows the fractal nature of the universe, that we only can account for about 5% of the universe. You know, the rest of it is called dark matter and dark energy, right? So, there's a correlation there. Maybe it has something to do with consciousness, do you think? Okay. So the spin patterns are not stuck, but they're also not chaotic. There is infinite intelligence working these things. There's no such thing as randomness, actually. If you're able to find the right perspective, there's infinite intelligence scaling of going on. So, you know, as I was saying, there are torus fields around each of us, and there are many scales of torus fields. You know, some people talk about there are different levels of the different bodies that we inhabit. You know, there's the spirit body, and there's the emotional body, and there's the mental body, blah, 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 blah. And each of those would be a realm. I like to think of these torus fields as realms of exploration. And they can be on different scale. And they all align through your vertical. This is where you are in the center. You are in the center. You're actually in the center of the universe. Yes, so you actually are in the center of the universe. In fact, when they were looking at the expanding cosmos through the Hubble telescopes or whatever, they thought, well, where's the center? Where's the center? You know, they wanted to find out where it was all originating from. So they did the measurements, you know, they did the math, and they wound the clock backwards. And everywhere was center, which makes a lot of sense if you believe there may be some semblance to the Big Bang Theory, that it was all a singularity that then expanded. That singularity, everything was there, is there, everything. So you literally are at the center of the universe. Wow, if I'm the center of the universe, that's a lot of responsibility. May we do it well, okay. It's an omnicentric universe, right? Its center is everywhere. And your consciousness is at the center of it. So you are not separate from source. That's really good to know. I think we often can kind of feel a bit lost with that. And, but you can't be separate from source, okay? But the thing is, this is very, very idealized for how we're actually incarnated here. You know, I don't my torus fields don't look like that. My torus fields aren't this like nice, lovely spinning, maybe some of them, I don't know. But mine, I understand that a lot of the perception that I get, you know, all the different chakras are all in portals of different kinds of frequency of information, right? And they all align along your own vertical, which is aligned with many levels of scale. And so, in fact, one really easy, really obvious way to know that you're connected to a larger level of scale is to let yourself feel gravity. Good reminder. Gravity is being sourced from a different level of scale. It's being, the gravity that we feel as our own vertical alignment, even if we're lying down, there's a vertical that we know that's not necessarily aligned with the body, but we still understand it as vertical, right? And we know it because of our sense of gravity, which is our relationship of a little body on the surface of the planet to the center of the planet. And that may as well be like going from 1 to infinity, right? I mean, the level of scale is such a vast shift of perspective, right? And that's just this hyper-local location right here, you know, with just from here to the planet. I mean, yeah, I'm on this one. It's very hard for me to feel my scale jump from me to the solar system, or even sometimes me to the sun. That's a little more available, you know. That's actually kind of available. And as far as my connection to the stars, I only get like a little tiny bit of information, but it actually is a star that I'm getting information, that little bit of light, you know, that actually is from the star somehow. There's some way that there is something spinning out there in that location. It may not be anything like that little tiny bit of light, but encoded in that little bit of light is the information of the star. That's actually part of the unified physics theory, is that the entire universe is encoded into every proton, into every atom, the entire universe. Which is, but I'm not really talking about that. But good to know. Good to know. So it's an incredible gift to have been able to come onto this level of reality and experience it like this, which is, you know, very wobbly. You know, it actually probably looks. My torus fields probably look more like this. Well, actually, this even feels idealized to me. So this is a crop circle. So. So there are circles, you know, there are large circles along which there are all these smaller circles in graduated explorations. So in my translation of the language of geometry into consciousness information, okay, is that any circle or a line, or any hole can be considered a realm, an exploration of some subject matter. You know, and at any level of scale, you can put that anywhere, you know. So it could be a subject, it could be a being, it could be just a realm of exploration for some reason, or a feeling even, with all of its associated different perspectives on that realm. Each of those angles, each of those circles is like a different way of considering that particular circle. This is how I read this stuff. So, and then we've got ones that they're like wobbling, you know, there's some kind of wobble going on there, which fortunately there is some symmetry on it, so you can find a little bit of balance there. I am going to be talking a lot about duality. You mentioned the thing about non-duality. Well, I'm kind of feeling like we really need to get a handle on duality in a really, really good, positive way. Otherwise, it can it takes us. It's very hard to not be pulled. Okay, so there's this one. Multiple shells that are wobbling with many uneven angles of reference. The saving grace of this is that it is symmetrical, possibly even phi ratioed, and the center is actually at the center there, so that's very good. Center is still known. And then sometimes it just spills out and starts creating willy-nilly. All those little torus fields, they just go working on their own. Crop circles are pretty varied, and I like getting the messages from all of it. So it's all one, but it's not homogeneous. You know, it's lumpy. Our consciousness is lumpy. Even Earth's gravitic field, even Earth's gravitational field, it's not smooth, it's lumpy. You know, it's spinning very strangely. So we need to be able to find our navigation legs. Manifest reality is massively fractally spinning and at every level of scale, from the Planck scale, which is that very, very fine, the fine base structure, to the proton, to the atomic, to cellular, to biological entities, to planets and solar systems and galaxies and superclusters and, the vastness of the entire whole. You add all that spin together from where you are, and it's no wonder I'm having vertigo today. There's structure, the structure of space, and then we get to climb through it. Okay, so here's what we did. We were between lives, or just prior to this life, we were discussing with the guides, what do I want to do next? I don't know, I need certain kinds of lessons. What's the life I want to do? Okay. All right, all those suggestions you're giving me, that looks pretty good. I'll sign the contract. You signed a contract to come in and do you in your particular lifetime as you, here on this planet, now in this history, etc. So you signed the contract, and then you contracted. We contracted into a subset. What we're doing, what our consciousness is doing, thank God, I do not have to be aware of the whole thing, because it's really big. Thank God. Thank you, God. I get to do a subset. I get to do a little slice that is extremely beautiful. The lifetime, oh my God, what a miracle. To be able to inhabit a being here, now, you. Wow. Pretty exquisite. And so the contract that we did, it's not a bad thing, not at all. It's the contraction was the contract. The contraction is the contract that we signed. So not to be afraid of it. In fact, the gift that we get by being able to be these little subsets of consciousness is that we get to be surprised by things. We get to have unknowns. They talk about the near-death experiencers talk about, I got to the other side and I suddenly knew everything. All my questions were answered, even barely before I had even thought them, It's, well, from here, I don't have that. I get to be like, how is this going to sound if I put it on this table? It's a little different from if I'm holding it in my hand. It's, I get to be surprised and explore through the unknown. And where we are right now is we're being faced with a much larger context of what the unknown might bring us. And we have to be really aware of how our own consciousness is projecting that, projecting on it, holding it open. And Okay, so I'm going to get into that a lot more. So we're doing a subset. Benefits of, well, what's really good is, we're climbing through the structure, and we get to have unknowns, how do I balance here, how do I get over to there? And there's something you're being supported through scale. Remember, that central angle, that vertical, it's connected to the planet, to the center of this planet. So you're being supported through scale, which is very, very good. Gravity, I like to say, gravity is not going to let you down. Yeah, and we really need to also open up our sensitivity, which can be scary. I mean, it is scary. What's going to happen if I have a relationship with you? What's going to happen if I let myself feel your pain or your joy? What's going to happen here? It's actually, and that's my practice, is to see, am I open? How far do I open? How far do I let my torus field of attention extend and connect? And then what information comes back, and how does that inform in here? So we're not going to get very far if we don't know how to reconnect with our sensitivity. And under your fear is usually your sensitivity. I wrote an article many years ago called "All Fear is Fear of Intensity." With the idea that there's intensity of information that we do not yet know if it's intense, because we don't know how to harmonize with it. We don't know how to take it in and not lose our center. That's stepping into the portal. That's one way you could step into the portal, is to actually work with your own fear. This is one of my favorite crop circles. This is another good illustration, I think, of what our consciousness is actually doing. Okay, so how I understand this crop circle is that there's every dot, remember, every dot can be a being, is a center. This center is not in the center. This center is not in the center, and it's projecting on a reflection of itself. Do you see it? What I'm pointing to? The circle at the top, the circle at the bottom is me, is you, and we're projecting we're like hearing the light bouncing off of that reflection of myself. Looks just like me. It's a circle, about the same size, I don't know, somewhere. And it may not even be there, but it sure is reflecting. And there's all these interference patterns that go on because of in my reality, out through my projection. This is what's actually going on. You get it? And consequently, I'm like seeing all of this pattern that I've totally sourced from being off center. And oh my God, there's such incredible intelligence that's holding us to be able to show that. So consciousness is not smooth, and reality is not what we think. It's not that this isn't. There's spiritual memes out there about this doesn't actually exist, and there's a way that I agree with that entirely. It's all just spin. But what's spinning? Something is here. It's not a thing. It's a relationship. It's a structure of God from here. It's the structure of God from here. Okay? So it's not homogeneous, but it's supported by a much larger scale of coherency. So the practice is to be able to find and rest in center, and the master class in incarnation is to be able to actually be in relationship and have that be a good ride for everyone, you know? Sensitively, we want to have these relationships be sensitive so that the most fun can be had by all, not excluding yourself. You must be included, and other must be included. Otherwise, we're not in the whole universe. It's all you. It's all you. But it's also, you're there. And that's a different location than here, from here. God from here is here. God from there is there. You know, as far as I can tell, it's. Can I honor that? I think that's it's a really good position to be standing in, actually. So this is kind of like an orientation. You know, you have the center. There were lots of crop circles that have this kind of 5-spot design, like a dice, like a 5-dice face. And most of them did the geometer's trick of squaring the circle or circling the square. Maybe even all of them will circle the square in some way. So there was a really brilliant geometer that found like 50 new ways to circle the square that were in the crop circles that had never been seen before when he started working with the crop circles. Pretty amazing. Anyway, but so circling the square is a metaphor for that the square it's the same area or perimeter length as the circle. And the circle is representing the whole, the universe, everything, the unknown, the all, and the square is representing manifest reality. Actually, there's some people who reverse that, but semantics, doesn't matter. The point is that there's a portal there. North, south, east, and west. This is like orientation into this reality, okay? So the first relationship, as I said before, is with the self. And there's a geometry here. So you know, there are 3 axes here, right? There's up, down. You know, think of it more like jacks. You know, think of it in 3D. That there's an up, down. There's a vertical axis. There's a right, left axis, and there's a forward, back axis, right? So you stand at the center of all geometries. Put yourself in the center of this. You have a vertical axis, you have a right, left axis, you have a forward, back axis. And very conveniently, those 3 axes in this beautiful, brilliant design puts the vertical centers it here, centers action here, you know, this axis here, and this forward-back axis. I've got these really great tools down here that allow me to travel around, right? And here's another way to think of these 3 axes. Your vertical alignment through scale is aligned with who you truly are, all the way out. Who you truly are has direct access to your vertical alignment here in this incarnation. Then you have this horizontal reference points, all these horizontals, you know. Anything not vertical, you can even think of it as a spherical horizontal. It's everything in this reality is the horizontal incarnation, right? And then there's my traveling through it. So there's who I am, there's where I am, and then there's when I am. Who, where, and when are these 3 axes, okay? Now there's a 4th axis, and the 4th axis is a spherical one. It goes in, out. It's a breathing axis. It's the one that reaches out and senses. It's the feeling body. And it's the one that is bringing in kind of navigational information. Do I like this? Do I not like this? Do I need to contract and protect a little bit around this subject matter? Or is it like, yeah, that's working for me, I'm gonna go and explore some more, right? Okay. The feeling body is the tool, and what's expanding is the sensitivity field that's reaching out to have contact and receive information. And hopefully it has a desire to feel good. Let's hope so, you know, because I would much rather be in a universe that feels good. Wouldn't you? It's kind of like, why would I think anything differently? So what's expanding is a sensitivity field that's going out to receive information. And then what it's contracting is reception and perception. And that may have fear in it, depending on whatever it is that I'm projecting here. And it can have joy in it as well. But it's mostly unknown. You know, we're taking in a lot of information that we're not really aware of. So how do you extend to connect? This was from 1991, an old one. 2 points, geometry, 2 points, and a connection between them. Me and you. Subject matter, like, don't like. There's a connection between them. And then it's a whole spectrum, and there's a whole range of interaction that goes on between myself and my connection with another person, right? It's like there's lots of resonance going on there, you know, along that ping, that information that's coming in and going back out again. So it's oscillating. How do I stay in balance? Well, you recognize, part of it is to recognize the duality. If you feel yourself being pulled to one side of a polarity, like it's got to be this way, it's really good to expand your frame and don't ignore the other side out of your preference for one. No, because consciousness really wants to expand and experience. It actually is not too worried about if you're going to have a good day or not. It's all just experience, right? So that's what's being fed back up the pipeline, you know, to who you really are, is all of your experience, right? And you know, we're here to have a good ride. We're here to expand the subset. So how do you know if you're off center? Well, it don't feel good. Or you, for instance, you might be having to maintain too much tension in order to maintain an oscillation. This is like huge barbells, and it's got these extra weights on them or something. It's like, or you could also think of this as like knowing that the polar pairs also have polar pairs. You know, I like something. I kind of like it, I don't really like it, you know, it's like, and I don't like that same subject, you know, and it starts to fractalize out. Your consciousness can start to fractalize. And then, but you're in the center of all of that. You're the one that, you don't actually have to be caught in that. It's fine, but, you know, here we are, we're exploring, we're climbing through the structure of space-time. So pretty soon, as you're starting to get a handle on, oh, right, I'm dealing with polarities, you start to see how they spin, and they support each other, and they, you know, how to get out of one, if, you know, keep it turning, you know, if it starts to make you feel a little stuck. And then they start to find harmonics. So the third point can actually just step out of center, and you can be in the portal in a new center, you know, and find a whole new realm of exploration. So, but apparently we still have some heavy lifting to do. This was, that first was 1991, this was just 2 years ago. So this theme of this kind of get a handle on polarity, people. This is really important. They seem to think it's still important. And, but you know, they keep showing it in different ways and finding different expressions of support. And I mean, I can read these, but okay, so this triptych icon of 3, two with a center, it's used a whole lot around the world, more than just in the crop circles. For instance, you have these cathedrals. It's in the huge structure. You obviously 2 polar pairs with a central axis, with the rose window in the center, and then you also have the portals at the bottom are in triplets. That's got 3 with a great big. It's inviting you to go right through center, but you never know. You might want to explore. So this is actually the work of Richard Casaro. I'm going to show a bunch of slides from him at the moment, and we'll go through them pretty quickly. So this triptych icon, it's all around the world in ancient, and it's still being used, but in ancient places it was used then too. So here you see the triptych portal, right? And you know what this is? This is the back of this piece, the Gate of the Sun in Tiwanaku, which was one huge piece of block. It's like, I don't know, 100 tons or something. Just a really, really big stone that was carved, and it broke, but it never was attached to a building or anything. This is what it was. It was a freestanding portal. Clearly, it's a portal, isn't it? Why would they have done this, this kind of weight? And then just bring your attention to the little figure above the portal. Here he is. This is an ascended person that is obviously got a lot of knowledge going on, a lot of kind of an enlightened being, probably, has this figure on his chest and is also standing. This little figure is known as the Chak Mul, and if you've ever been to Mexico, there's this figure that's he's very vulnerable. He's lying with his knees up, and he's got a little bowl on his belly, and he's just entirely vulnerable. And I love that figure is over the heart at the moment, just completely vulnerable, receiving, but paying attention, receiving right into the belly. And then what's the other thing he's doing? He's holding polarities, right? And Richard Casaro has identified that this particular icon also was ubiquitous in ancient history. And we're going to just look at a few examples. So the same icon was etched in stone above the temple at Tiwanaku, that gate, and also on the Temple of Hadrian in Ephesus, Turkey. Okay, now let's just kind of go through these. Icon is all over the world. It's an enlightened being who has balanced control of his nature, of his dual, of his wildness, his masculine and his feminine. And he knows center. He's completely balanced in center, but he's dealing with some pretty unruly symmetries. Both male and female, doesn't matter in the ancient iconography. These are all angels. These guys all have wings, so clearly if you can achieve this, you can navigate a little bit more, possibly. You might start seeing this in places you didn't even realize, It's really, really interesting. Well, here's this guy again. And note that he's got a firm grip, but his elbows are relaxed. His arms are actually kind of relaxed. This is not, this is, okay, we're good, let's go, And it's above a portal to the unknown. So now, when you look at a crop circle like this one, maybe you have a little different reference point, right? balance and transcendence of opposites. This is the details, the center circles there, and I just want to point out in the description of the dual pair, the first one has from center, it's resonating out in concentric rings, and on the other side, well, it's a little hard to see, but there are two tufts in the center that got left, these two standing tufts, and you can see that they're like hard because of that dual resonating. There are harmonics that start to come out around it. Can you see how it got laid down with a kind of 7 or 8 pattern? I'm not sure. And then this is the very center one that weaves together the information from both sides and become a basket to receive more. Yeah.
What are the objects in the lower?
Loud, please.
The objects.
Those are people.
Okay.
So that gives you those little bitty tiny dots there. Those are probably those people. You know, it gives you a sense of scale. So back to this guy. So what's he holding on to? He's holding on to unity and duality. One side is a single, the other side is dual, right? Singularity in relationship. What do you need your pillars to be? I've looked at this a lot for myself personally, and I'll give you my answer. I think it's a pretty good one, actually. But it's a really good question. I realize that if I'm going to face the unknown, I need to feel safe enough. And for me, what will help in relationship, facing the unknown means a willingness to be in relationship with something that I do not yet know, right? So if in order to be willing, I have to feel that there's respect involved. One of my pillars is I call respect. And respect has to do with honoring that this is all God, for instance. Every point is valid. Every point has a right to be here. And that's respectful, isn't it? Respect also does not assume that they know. Respect gives space for something to be revealed in time that is not yet known, but is spacious enough. I take responsibility. I take responsibility with holding that there's enough room for everything to fit. It's a really big universe. Good news, and that there's enough time for all of it to unfold. So there's no rush. That's also really, really good news. And those things are very spacious, and I'm willing to own my projection. That's the other thing. People that are really respectful really own their own projections, and they do not load their projections, any requirement of their projections, but to be fulfilled by the outside. That's actually my definition of forgiveness. And I'm actually going to talk about that a little bit more. But so it's feeling good, it's not stuck, there's room, it's respectful. And then the other pillar for me is intending that it be healthy. I've actually been working at I would love to find a really good, concise label like respect, but this one's a little bit more dynamic, and it has more to do with, respect is good, and to be in the universe that I really want to be in, that feels great for everybody, it's got to feel great for everybody, which has to be healthy. How do you know you're healthy? You feel good. You can navigate without bumping into people. You can feel free enough to express yourself without feeling like all the air, you have to suck all the air out of the room in order to have enough for you, or that someone else is doing that, It's those are all markers of if I can intend that health reveal itself. It's not that I necessarily have to be completely healthy. I mean, would that we were, but we're not. We've got lots of stuff going on. And, but if I can intend, maybe it'll help me to open up my sensitivity and maneuver in a way that's gonna start to be fun. So, free stability in the portal. This is a ship, you know, you're each in a ship, the portal is a ship. And this guy has his axes aligned, you know, and is able to go find his balance and move around. And it's really great to be able to know your center and relax and trust and let God. But unfortunately, in our culture, as humans on this planet at this time, bless our dear, beloved little hearts, we've been heavily traumatized as a species. And many of us carry it in our very daily lives. And so, you know, trying to hold on to the polarity for your balance cannot be a simple thing. And the picture can get very fractured. And there are coping mechanisms of behavior that we do that are based in fear. So, you know, it's really good work to do the inner work and notice your projections and practice respect and intending the highest good. There are habits that create static due to unexamined assumptions and PTSD. One of the things that we do as a really, boy, notice if you're doing this, and we do it really subconsciously, and is demonization. We in our projections and our reception, you know, we have programmed in frequencies of lensing that say that person is bad, you know, and boy, I don't have to name names. You know, we all can find probably a whole slew of people that we do this with. So that's something you can take responsibility for. Actually, is your own demonization of reality, because everything is spinning and it's alive and relating, and you're at the center of it. And so how can you breathe with noticing, oh, gee, I don't think well of this person. I'm doing that. I'm not thinking well of this person. I don't know who that person is. I don't know that person's journey. I can have all ideas about what I think that journey should be, but I'm not their center. I'm not at their center, right? They're God from there. How can I respect that journey? So these two sharks, did you guys see that it was two sharks? Okay, that they're eating little fish, but the little fish are actually the tails of its own species. This is this is something that's in consciousness, unfortunately, at the moment, is this kind of vampiric kind of almost like cannibalism. I mean, that's a big leap, but there are, basically what's happening is that you want to be at center. You want to know that Source has your back, and it does. Source has your back. And people that do not have their access to their own direct lineup and trust in their own being, they then have to find Source from outside. They eat it from the outside. And this is what all those really nefarious practices are, is trying to get Source from out there. And it's vampiric. It's you know, it's those really nasty practices. But there is, in the center of this one, you know, there's a trifecta going on there that is that does have center, that they would be available to fall into if they wanted to and become recohered. Know your projections. Know that they're part of the 5% that's happening here, but it's resonating with the 95%. And that's unknown coherency, though. So anything that feels stuck or can't change that you project, that's just the way it is, and it's going to be bad. You know, victim, perpetrator projections, whatever. No, they're healed by knowing that you don't know, by allowing and knowing that everything actually wants to be of service. It actually wants to give the lesson so that it can let go and not be caught anymore. And forgiveness, big one. Everything is motivated by love. This is one of my actual deep beliefs, is that actually everything is motivated by love, even if it's just self-love and self-protection. That's still God wanting to find respect for its own experience, right? Fractal, it's all fractal in a unified field, and we don't want to fixate the universe. We don't want it to get stuck anywhere. Oh yeah, an interesting thing is that this CERN pattern is actually in this, take a breath. So don't demonize. Who is out there? How far does this go? It's knocking at our doors, friends. Some of you, we may have contactees in this room. I don't know. You know, it's knocking at our doors. So don't demonize. If the fear response comes up, that's your work. You know, how do you find yourself in a good, respectful, bring respect, insist on respect. You know, don't take advantage of me without my permission. You know, absolutely not. I demand that this be respectful. And I hold that that this could be a really amazingly beautiful, healthful expression that I never had any idea was possible. Certainly there's a lot of knowledge and awakening in this being. All could be good. And so the past history has a function. Our stories, they have a function of informing us. You know, it can all serve. You know, even your most traumatic, your most traumatic experiences can serve your understanding of what kinds of relationships you don't want to be in. You know, and where you don't want to go anymore, you know, and we certainly have a lot of history to remember so that we don't repeat it again, you know. It's like, and to allow that anytime you feel your own trauma responses to come up, to go, okay, I hear that, and what is it that I truly want, right? That will put you in the portal. So this crop circle, the bottom part that looks kind of like a church with blood or sweat or tears coming out of the bottom of it, you know, that part came down first. That appeared in this field. And then several days later, the circle and all the design above it appeared. And then it got one more adjustment. But of the extension of its orientation, being able to make it be a ship, and including the diamond at the bottom also. But so your history can serve as knowing one direction, and you don't have to be stuck in it. How to unstick it, that's the clue. So we're encouraging the highest good, health. Health is feeling good, it's not stuck, it's spacious for the most beautiful expression. Encouraging sensitive relationship, encouraging fulfilling revelation, harmonic connection, honoring sensitivity, and respect. You know, it's spacious, it honors the unknowns, it forgives, it doesn't require other to fulfill any of your projections. There's no obligation. So willingness is to relate sensitively and letting the past serve, but not holding it static. This is Marianism. In the portal, we are moving from the static to the ecstatic. Trademark. TM. I would much rather be in a good reference point, even with my pain, and know that it's all serving to allowing me to have a relationship that can go deeper and further, and that would be good. There's another spiritual meme out there that this world is suffering. Get over it. It's, yes, there's a lot of suffering, and it is really important to understand how to have a good relationship with that. But if you blanket all of experience that it's suffering, oh my God, the limitation that you've put on yourself is just radically, I am so sorry. It's like, hey, this world is ecstatic. This world is amazing. I mean, I ate a rose today that was flowering in the middle of winter. Wow, I ate a rose. It's like, wow, that's amazing. It was an experience, and everything is an experience. That's amazing. So bring heaven down here. Project that, That would be okay. Our projected noosphere is co-creating. See these beings' heads, they're like growing. It's co-creating the collective out-picturing, but the work to change it is done at the individual level. You have the handles internally that make the energetic change on your perception. It's done at the individual level. But you can stand in the portal, and it is a ship. And you can understand triads and actually get through the veils. And you are the ship. Learn to navigate. And breathe. I always thought this would look like breath, with the little flames that are on the inside on this side and on the outside on the other side. And there's this kind of growing in expansion, and then a letting go of the out breath. And so breathe, and remember that horizontal oscillations have vast regions of motion and exploration of scale, and vast ranges of motion, and they're not stuck. But from center, which is both the rest point and the high point, you're being held by a vertical that's going through scale, and it's got your back. It's got you. And so you can relax. It's a much larger intelligence. It's got you. All the doors are open. I'm almost done. All the doors are open, and no matter how long or how committed a being has been, this is my prayer for all of sentience on this planet at the moment. No matter how long or how committed a being has been to reality being a certain way, no matter what that reality is, it is all up for reevaluation and making new choices now. And this is a brilliantly responsive universe that we are in, and it can be an ecstatic turnaround. Yeah, everyone is welcome. And just, allow yourself to be sensitive, be in the portal, because you are the key, and you can fit in the door if you know how to hold on to the handles. Yeah. I have one more slide. Can I do the last one? Or, yeah, don't lose your thought. Okay, so in closing, this is my representation of what Richard Casaro called the God Self icon. So I believe that there actually is an aim to this incarnating reality that we're in 3D. I think there's an aim here. It's a holy aim. And I've written it over the triptych. There's two columns and a being that's expanding and ascending. It says I am. The letter A is the simple, it's a triangle, right? It's the simplest way to represent space. It's a symbol for space, is the triangle, the letter A. And in fact, the word indicates that you're going to talk about something in space, right? So, and then the letter M is frequency. The letter M is time. The letter M is oscillation in time and memory. And it's also harmonic relationship, right? Okay, so that's I am. And I also see that it's space and time, and it's also space is respect, and time is harmonic relationship. Maybe that's what that should be called. Okay, so, and then you put that together and you have your aim. So the I is in the center axis and it aligns through scale and balance. I am in the portal, and that's the aim. Okay. Right. Now we can do some questions.